Let's go! Welcome back to the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Watkins. I am back with the coach, Philip Roybal. And if you love college football, you're definitely in the right place. So before you forget, smash that red subscriber button, like our videos, and don't forget to ring the bell so you don't miss one moment of the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. Welcome back to the show, Coach Philip Roybal. Happy New Year again to everybody who is in our comment section already, and thank you for joining us once again. Coach, how you doing?
Man, doing great. Just trying to get, like I said, trying to get back into the swing of things, and a little bit sad that the football season has come to an end with college football. But there's a lot of things that happen between now and the start of the season. So,
yeah, listen, there is a ton of stuff, and there's still a ton of stuff to talk about after that game last night. I guess as a Big 12 guy, you kind of got to hope that it's a game a little longer than this through the first part of the second quarter. And I guess the main thing that I would have to say about all that was that really you would have hoped that you could we're going to talk all about that, Mike, all about that. Listen, again, man, just to me, I guess I would just start with that question, Coach. What does this mean for the Big 12 moving forward? Obviously, once you have Texas and Oklahoma leave this conference, who's going to carry the flag for the Big 12? Did any last night do anything to make you feel like there's anything good coming of this?
I didn't. I truly didn't. I think with Texas and OU leaving the Big 12, I think that's a big gap to fill.
Right.
Both of those teams have, usually been there in the top. Even Texas, when they're down, they're usually still making waves. But I just don't see it. And I've told you before, I see Baylor headed in a downward spiral. Texas Tech. Now, I think Joey McGuire's doing a good job at Tech. To me, they're kind of on the rise.
Right.
But when I look at the Big 12 overall, I don't see anything good right now.
Right. And you just kind of hope that, hey, it was, to give a little bit of love to TCU is obviously to get a win over the Big 10 like that. I feel like the Big 12 was probably the second best conference this season overall, because when you start looking at just the competitiveness of it, and then of course the fact that they get into the championship game. Now, when you get in there and you get smoked 65-7, it doesn't do a lot for anyone's, feelings of what it's going to be moving forward. Well, now, go ahead.
At the end of the day, Jason, it just shows us all. And I don't like to taste this spoon of what we got fed last night, but
right.
At the end of the day, it just tells us how much separation there is between the SEC and the other programs in the country.
Listen, and I kind of felt like even the week before, whenever Ohio State had its best chance to beat an SEC team, in view of the fact they're in the dome, being able, there's no elements to deal with. That offense was going to be able to click on all cylinders, and you still couldn't get it done with Georgia really not playing its best game.
No.
Last night, Georgia comes out and they just stick it to TCU, and I kind of agree with you, BV. I think that that's kind of what I said midway through the second quarter, was that it felt like the lights probably were a bit bright, or and it was just too big of a situation for a team that hadn't been there before, hadn't really tasted anything like this. To be able to withstand something that defense is just. Even their freshmen, that freshman defensive end, he was in Max's guts all damn day. Just all day. And this is a freshman, a true freshman. This was supposed to be, they had 5 guys in the first round a year ago, off of that defense, and they didn't miss a beat. You know, they took a team that, you know, and a Heisman finalist and made them look like a junior varsity. And it's just kind of tough to, you know,
Yeah.
it's tough. It's tough to watch, but you know, as good a job as I think Sonny and his program did this first season at TCU, it makes me wonder how much of it was you got a little momentum and then you were able to kind of push through. But what are you going to do in a year when you got a new quarterback, a lot of new guys, a lot of new faces? They didn't recruit great as far as, you know, what it looks like is the overall rankings. They're going to have to rely on the portal in a lot of ways, you know.
I agree, Jason. I've got a kid that played for me at Midwestern State that's there at TCU,
Mm-hmm.
and I've got some other relations within that program, and it was, and the statement was made. The lights were a little too bright for him. And you'll remember back you and I having these conversations. I don't know if I mentioned it in here, but I thought TCU got lucky in about 3 ball games that Lady Luck was on their side and pulled them through. And I've even made this statement. I want to see what next year looks like. Can you put back-to-back years? And I mean, to me, well, to everybody, they were a true Cinderella team.
Sure.
But I, as much as I love my guys that are there, I don't think they can put back-to-back seasons like they did this year as far as wins.
Right. And Robert, I couldn't agree with you more on this thing here. It's something that I saw the Outlaw said that a little bit earlier today. You know, Kent State went in and Missouri went in and gave them more of a game than what they got out of TCU. Now,
But
again, they weren't playing in the same type of a ball game or the same type of bright lights to do that either.
Right.
So, I mean, it's kind of oversimplification to look at it. But truth be told,
you can't hardly do that, guys. It's matchups. There's so many different things that happen, and it's hard to say. Well,
sure.
Prairie View A&M played Alabama 12-6 or something. I mean, it just it doesn't match up that way. I used to have to deal with that crap when I was coaching. I would just shake my head.
Yeah, and you have to think about it. When you're the national champions and you come in number 1 to start off the season, and you have already had some big wins which they already had, where they had really thumped Oregon first right out of the blocks. They beat the brakes off of Oregon. They really hadn't been tested. You get a game. It's real easy to see them overlooking Kent State. It's really easy to see them overlooking Vanderbilt or Missouri or some of these other programs. And then, of course, but when it came time to really put their stamp on something, like, say, the Tennessee game, they were not tested in that game. And Tennessee was as good as they've been in 20 years, so they weren't tested in that one. Then you figure, it's just a different deal. But again, I understand where that comes from. That you would like to see more of a game than that. And de facto, it looks like the national championship game was played a week before that with the Ohio State game, because I felt like firepower-wise, they were really the only team left in it that was going to be able to maybe put up enough points to deal with the onslaught that you were going to get from Georgia. And even defensively, it felt like to me, and I don't know, maybe you have a different take on this, but I kind of felt like they took some chances on some coverages and doing some stuff like that it turned into touchdowns, and then it got out of hand. And so then maybe they could have been a little more vanilla on defense and just kind of kept it all in front of them. Maybe they stay in it a little longer that way. But in the end, I feel like they were just overmatched.
And that's exactly right, Jason. I mean, they did take some chances. There's no doubt. As I was watching the game, I'm thinking, boy, that's a big risk, and boom, there goes a touchdown there. But let's be realistic, and I think they knew this too. They were overmatched, and for them,
so you kind of have to take those chances.
Even during the season, going back to those times they got lucky, they rolled the dice and they won. But last night they lost on every one of those, and again, the talent level they were facing you knew if you rolled the dice, you could lose big, and they did. They lost big.
Right. Listen, and yeah, I think you're right on that. But Mike, so looking at this, am I wrong for saying Stetson Bennett should have won the Heisman? Yes, you're wrong. I don't look, and if I was going to give the Heisman to anybody else but Caleb Williams, it would have went to Max Duggan. In view of the fact of the team that he took and put them in that position. Now, do I like Stetson Bennett a lot? I do. Is he a great story for having gone back to a junior college and all that kind of deal? Yeah. Is he Caleb Williams or even close to Caleb Williams? No, he's not. And you folks, you got to remember that the one thing, hey, if there was a worse defense in the country than Oklahoma's this season, it was probably USC's. And so, I mean, look, for Caleb to be able to will them to as many games, and we saw it a year ago when he was a Sooner, that is a special football player. And as much as I know a lot of you guys do not like Caleb Williams because he left, and look, I've got my own little issues with it too. You know what I mean? And being an OU fan, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of him anymore at this point. And especially after some of the stuff that happened with the Utah and the painting the fingernails. And, I feel like he could be a little more classy. But let's not get it twisted that the dude was the real deal. Coach, you saw him in person. Did he not do enough by a lot to win that game and win it handily against Tulane? The guy was definitely, I don't think that they got that wrong. Would I have had a problem with Max getting it? No, because this is a team that was picked to win to be seventh in the Big 12, and he took them all the way to the national title game. Let's see, what was I going to? Oh, Kim, how do you lose the Big 12 championship game and not drop in the polls from 3 to 5? I said this as well because you know why? Because I wanted to see Michigan and Ohio State do it again. Let's see on a neutral field how that goes. And then allow that's going to give you the best matchup in the national title game, I felt like. Because obviously TCU didn't have anything for Georgia. And I think 99 times out of 100, that's probably exactly what happens is what happened last night. I think you could have had a better game. And I don't understand if you're that committee and you know damn good and well what that would have done to your numbers to put Michigan and Ohio State up against each other again. And to get into the championship game.
Keyword committee. Anytime you throw people together like that to make those kinds of decisions, so many things go into that from personal. They can say they don't, have their personal feelings that go into that, but they do, and so many other things that are part of that. So committee is the word. I mean, and when we can get to a 12 team bracket, then we're going to have a lot better look at this. Even if they would have stayed where the Big 12 championship didn't cost them, and they would have stayed where they stayed, you would have seen it wash itself out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that once you get that bracket together and you have 12 teams, I think it changes the college football landscape completely. I don't think that I'm kind of torn between whether or not it's good or bad for the game. Because I think that the regular season right now kind of plays out like playoffs in some instances. I don't like the Big Tens just playing East against West. I don't like that. I would rather see that they have the best two teams playing for the conference title. But really, it's just them in the SEC that doesn't do that. And the SEC, you haven't seen as much of that be a problem. But aside from that, I feel like there's a part of me that feels like that's going to be a problem moving forward. But that being said, if you're going to get these games whenever you get it into playoff time and you're going to fix bowl season, which we talked a lot about that, how the bowl season was just kind of junk, maybe that's a better thing. And, Sean, who would have thought that TCU would make it to the chip before OU or UT? Yeah, whatever, Sean. So, no, Sean is my friendly neighborhood troll. We love him here because he talks more trash than anybody else that comes in. We appreciate it. And you're even going to give me a little kudos for admitting that. Okay, well, look, I don't have to like it, but I have said this plenty of times. Caleb Williams was the best player in the country this season. That's it. That's how I feel about it. Again, let's see. I don't think making it 12 teams matter because the SEC will still run with it. And here's the thing about that is now you're going to almost guarantee that you're going to get minimum of 2 SEC teams into that tournament every year. And the chances are you could get 3. And hey, maybe that's what you need.
What's wrong with that? If they're the best conference, what's wrong with that?
Right.
I mean, I don't like it. I'll be honest with you. I hate the SEC, but at the end of the day, let's just be honest. Let's put the best 12 in and let's rock.
Listen,
and
roll. Man, they have definitely proven that they're the best conference. Just at least at the top, if for nothing else, that they're at least at the top. And there are enough. I don't know that the max can be. I don't think that there is a max necessarily. The way it's going to definitely go is it's going to be your 5 highest ranked conference champions. So if you're a conference champion, you're getting in as long as you're one of the highest ranked. If you're not one of those, and there's no way to get a conference championship if you're not one of the top 2 or 3 in that conference anyway, even as it stands. So for sure, it's definitely that, or 4. Maybe it's the 4 top rated conference champions. Then you've got your next 2, the highest rated group of 5 teams, if you want to call them that. I don't know that it's going to continue to be the group of 5 or whatever it is, Matt. But I don't believe that you're going to get 5 SEC teams in. I don't know that that's possible, but I mean, I guess this is something we're going to be looking at, and it's probably going to change a little bit between now and 2024 when this goes into effect. And look, we'll see how it goes. But again, I'm kind of with you on that, Coach. Is what you said is if it's the best teams, then it's the best teams. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't care how much money they just dumped into the Big Ten. The Big Ten has work to do because there wasn't, outside of OSU and Michigan, I didn't see nothing. And even in Penn State, they weren't running away with that Rose Bowl game over Utah until Cam Rising went out. When Cam went out, they took off. And I don't think that Franklin has really done a ton. I just don't. Kim, I would hope, if anything, here's what I would say about strength of schedule. I am sick and tired of seeing SEC and Big Ten teams play cream puff you 2 or 3 times a season, and even stop playing. In the middle of their conference season, they get some cream puff. I don't want to see that crap anymore. Now that you don't have to make sure you win with all these style points or whatever the crap, stop playing them. Okay, stop it. Maybe one at the start of the season for your scrimmage game, whatever the heck you want to call it that. But I feel like it's already going to, you already have, it's going to be easier for you to get in. If you do your thing in those 2 conferences, you're in, period. So stop playing these don't play the UNMs of the world. Stop playing the HBCU universities if you're UCLA and USC and all these other teams. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. And I just don't think that we don't trash.
Amen.
Yeah. I don't have to put respect on his name until he does something at freaking Penn State. I don't care that he did something at Vandy. Go do something at a major program. He's at a blue blood now. Go win. Go win, Sean. That's all I got to say about that. Go win. So, all right. So let's talk a little bit about this. Emmett Jones, Texas Tech wide receiver coach, has been named the Oklahoma receivers coach and passing game coordinator. This is obviously a new development. It's not new as far as knowing that there was going to be some movement on this. I don't see. There was going to be some movement on this as far as that was concerned. I think that a lot of people felt like LaDamian Washington was not really prepared for that position. And let's be fair, he wasn't put into the position in a good situation. You know, when Kale lost his job for doing what he did in that meeting room that day, that changed things. I feel like there was at one point that it looked like there was any number of guys that could have come in and been the receivers coach. It felt like Malcolm Kelly was probably going to be the guy until you start hearing that him and Schmitty hated each other. And so that wasn't really going to happen. There was also, you know, some other names that have been floated out there. Everything that I know about Emmett Jones is that he is some heck of a football coach. I know for sure that Texas was high on him. They were trying to get him as well. This was actually a big coup for Oklahoma to be able to jump in there and grab him before somebody else did, because it sounds as though he was high up on it, and apparently he almost had that North Texas job. Something fell through, but that was as a head coach. So you're kind of getting him on the up. He apparently his connections in the Dallas-Fort Worth area with high school coaches are huge, and you know when you're wanting to recruit the best players out of Texas and you need to keep your footprint there, that's a big deal. That's a big deal, and that's one thing I think that everybody kind of felt like LaDamian was probably a little over his head when it came to recruiting and that stuff.
Right. Well, you know what, Emmett and I actually have something in common, Jason. We both coached at Dallas Skyline.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't know he coached at Skyline. I didn't
know
that.
He was at Skyline from 2006 to 2013.
Wow.
And before that, he was at Lincoln, Dallas Lincoln. And then before that, he was at Seagoville High School there in the Metroplex.
Okay. So was he was head coach at all those places, or at least?
No. He at Skyline he was an assistant coach. He was the offensive coordinator, and then at Lincoln he was an assistant, and Seagoville he was an assistant. Now he was also at SOC, and you know that ties into what you were just talking about. SOC's been won 2 consecutive state championships,
right,
back to back, and so again, I think those connections are going to be fantastic for OU to have those Dallas connections.
Well, and I almost think you were talking about obviously with Texas Tech's coach Jamie.
Joey McGuire.
Joey McGuire. Yeah, Joey McGuire. Well, that was a big reason why it felt like, first off, and I think that they may have missed him at Baylor this season a little bit, him being the assistant head coach at Baylor a year ago. But I think that was a major reason that him being a back-to-back, state champion as a high school coach in that area. And where was it that he was at? It was dang it, it would have. Is it where K1 went? Anyway, yeah. So, but he was a winner in 6A football, and so obviously his connections were there big.
Right.
None of this hypothetical. Okay, so we're gonna have to throw this up here real quick. Now this is super trolling. This is super trolling. You should have to put money in the freaking kitty to say this stuff on my show, Sean. The little heart there, the super chat. You need to punch that real quick. And folks, just to let you know,
Sean, I want whatever you're drinking. I need some of that.
Yeah, I don't think that Sark even believes this crap right here, Sean. Not even Sark. So yeah, right. Okay.
Maybe I think you might have got your numbers backwards. I think it could be 0 and 14.
I have a hard time believing they'd go 0 for, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him do another 8 and 4 year. In view of the fact, and this is just Sark, man. He is that guy that is. We've talked about this a bunch. He's a 500 guy. I think that he's gonna have. It's gonna be one of those deals. Yeah, well, definitely the analysts will tell you that every offseason, but that's because they love them at ESPN. They love them at ESPN. So, but yeah, listen, I feel like, yeah, this is fine. Nate, you know what? Real quick, we'll just go to that. I don't have a problem with it in the first of the season. I said that. If you want to do that, your first game, second game, whatever, fine, do that. But what I'm talking about is when you get in the middle of the conference season and then you kind of you have a big game and you schedule that cream puff in there in between Tennessee and LSU if you're Georgia or whatever it may be. I don't want to see that, or I think Tennessee was the one that did that, but between Alabama and LSU or something like that. But in any event,
and then you define cream puff too. I mean, golly,
you shouldn't be playing FCS teams or just don't do that.
Exactly.
It's one thing to play. Hey, look, if you want, it's one thing to play New Mexico State, New Mexico, even Arizona, whatever you want to. I mean, if these are, and those guys are New Mexico State, obviously play in lesser conferences, but to me, they're Division I. Okay, right. I don't want to see you playing an FCS 1AA team, midway through your season. I just don't want to see that.
Or during your conference play.
Mm-hmm. Well, defining a Power 5 team, I don't know that there's a Power 5 anymore. I feel like as soon as the Pac-12 jettisons UCLA and USC, and as soon as OU and Oklahoma or OU and Texas are gone, those other two, I mean, really, those. I know that you replenished some with some decent teams, some good programs when you figure BYU, UCF, even Cincinnati, Houston. But I really still feel like this is a lesser conference, and I just don't see it, man. I just don't see it. I have a hard time with it. But I think that had TCU done something, had they made a game of it, then maybe you have a chance to recruit a little better. But I think that in view of the fact that they already hadn't really recruited that well with the season that they had, tells you something, that it's not going to change things a whole lot.
Nope.
If there was a team that I feel like is probably going to be at the head of the class, the more I think of it, in the Big 12, that's going to be a year in, year out contender, it's going to be UCF, because of the fact that they recruit in Florida. They have the largest fan base or alumni base in the country. They have the largest enrollment in the country. They have the most access to be able to be good. That being said, I just don't know that you can keep up, period, without being in one of these major conferences. And it's looking more like a Big 2, a Power 2, than it is anything else to me. I still feel like you're going to probably end up with 50 to 60 teams somewhere in the near future that are going to make up these two conferences, 30 in each conference, whatever it is, 25 in each conference, something like that. And those are going to be your FBS, whatever you want to call it, playing for the national championship. The other conferences are going to be in some kind of a, I guess it would be FCS, 1AA, whatever. It's the haves and the have-nots. And let's just be serious about it, folks. It's been that way anyway.
Yeah.
It's been that way anyway. The chances of you winning a national championship from anywhere aside from the SEC or the Big and I know the ACC with Clemson's done it, but I don't really see that happening anymore either. Maybe because of Miami and what they're doing money-wise, I still feel like all that's going to really end up happening is you're going to end up, whatever these teams are, there's some of them are going to get sucked into the Big Ten, some are going to get sucked into the SEC, and then the rest of them aren't. I've felt that way a lot when we were talking about a realignment and all that stuff, that it just felt like to me, in the end, you're going to get the best teams from what was the Big 12. They're going to be SEC teams. You'll probably add a couple from the ACC as well. Some of those ACC teams will go up north and play in the Big 10 as well, because they're just, some of those matchups fit better, right? Notre Dame should be a Big 10 team. Because their natural rivalries are in the Big 10. They are stamp dab in the middle of that conference. They should be in that conference. And I know there's a lot of reasons why they're not. I know a lot of the reasons why they're not, and they're stupid. But, and I get it. Why, if you're Notre Dame, you don't have to do it. So why would we? But I think once you say, okay, well, we're going to take away your opportunity to get into this playoff, then they got to make a move. I give a lot to Swarbrick for keeping it together the way that he has, as long as he has, for them being independent. But I just don't see that being something that you can do for a whole lot longer. I just don't see it. Again, talking about this, just to go back through some of this with Emmett Jones, I feel like this is a good move for him. I know that wasn't the first name that people were wanting to hear for this position. I think that it's pretty clear that he has that he's definitely put his stamp on it. I know that Joey didn't want to see him go anywhere. I think that it hurts Tech's recruiting probably more than anything else.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know what? And I hate to say this, but a lot of times, guys, at that Division I level, you'd almost rather hire a great recruiter than a great coach.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just the way it is, and I've seen it before. I've coached against some guys that went from Dallas Carter to the University of Texas that couldn't coach themselves out of a wet paper sack.
But they could get a coach. They could get a player to come to their school.
Dallas Metroplex, and by the way, Joey McGuire was at Cedar Hill. That's where he was. I couldn't remember.
I remember now.
Yeah,
you're right. You're right. Okay, so look, I think it's a big move for them. So part of me, I wanted to see LaDamian get his, and I think he's going to get his shot. It's just not going to be now. And when you're a program like Oklahoma that's trying to rebound and you just don't have time to bring him up to speed, I think kind of piggybacking off of what you just said, Coach, I think LaDamian was a better coach than he is a recruiter. And so therefore, that's a big part of what it was, because LaDamian just got through playing football as a receiver. This guy obviously knows what it takes to be a good receiver.
Sure.
I just feel like it was probably one of those deals where recruiting wise, he didn't have his chops yet,
Well, and I'll tell you this, Jason, I've seen some of the greatest players go into coaching and they suck. And you just made the statement. He just got through playing, he knows how to be a great receiver, but sometimes that translation doesn't go into it either.
Sure.
So
everything I've heard, though, the players all liked him. We could say there were some things that they didn't do well on the receiving side of things but I don't know that drops really has a bunch to do with that. I've heard people say stuff about their blocking, things like that. Again, they were a top 20, and blocking wise, I really have a hard time with that because you had Eric Gray do what he did this year.
Right.
The running game was very good. So I just feel like it was a lot more about it was definitely more about the fact that he wasn't really up to speed recruiting wise. When the drop off is Cale Gundy to him, Cale Gundy recruited Adrian Peterson. He recruited, Samaj P. Ryan. Dede Westbrook. The names go on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
So the recruiting wise, for his brother not being able to recruit at Okie Light, he could sure as hell recruit at Oklahoma. So, just thinking about that, if Oklahoma State really wants to, I think maybe that's the reason why they haven't made that hire yet, because I think that Mike likes to be able to tell everybody that he can't recruit with Oklahoma. And if his brother comes in there, they're going to know he's been full of shit for 20 years. So, oh man, I don't know. All right, let's talk about some other things. Obviously, folks, while I've been gone and I was at the All-American Bowl in San Antonio, also got to watch the San Antonio U.S. Army All-Star game, was watching our guy, Darian Holmes, show that that was a lot of fun, Coach. That was a lot of fun. And I tell you something, there were some things that I saw, first off, from the OU side of things, there were some things that I saw in that game, in the All-American game, because it was the first one they played, that made me very excited about defensively. Samuel Omosiho, the linebacker out of Crandall, looked fabulous. And even more so than that, Makari Vickers was shut down. Nobody threw his damn way, and he almost got a pick on a ball that wasn't coming his way, and he jumped the route and almost got it. Unbelievable performance by him. They didn't test him the entire night, and I sat there and watched him, and I saw why. The guy that they would put in, they were kind of swapping them each series. The guy that they would put in his place, they would throw it at him. And he did a good job too, by the way, but there was some cushion there. But when Makari was in, there was no chance. The other main the other thing that I took away from that football game was Dante Moore is unbelievable.
Yeah, we had him and lost him.
So you guys had him too?
Oh, he signed originally. He was signed with
us. Okay, he had jumped to Oregon, and then now, of course, he's jumped from there to UCLA.
Right.
Coach, this guy, effortless. The best throw that he made, he had 4 touchdown passes. And part of it was he got to play longer because of the backup ended up getting hurt pretty early on.
Yeah.
Because they were switching out series. But those first 2 touchdowns he had were great throws. The best throw he had wasn't a touchdown. In fact, it wasn't even a completion. He had staring down the barrel of one of the biggest defensive guys out there. The guy that's, I think he's going to Georgia, defensive tackle guy. Man, why his name is slipping me right now, but he was bearing down on him. And he makes a throw to the sideline that the window was about this big. It hits the dude's hands. It didn't hit anybody else's. It hit the receiver's hands, and he just didn't. I don't think he thought it was coming. I don't think he thought it was going to get there because he dropped it. I know the dudes that were sitting around me, everybody was like, whoa, who the hell is this kid? And the guy was unreal, unbelievably good. So I really felt like, man, I'll tell you what, I just felt like he was super impressive. And to think that I think, what is he, the 4th or 5th rated quarterback in the country? I'm not going to get into all this Arch Manning stuff I mean, he hasn't really had to compete a whole lot because of who he is. I know he goes to the Manning camp. He wasn't in Elite 11, all that. We could talk about that all day long. Bottom line is somebody loves him, right? To make him the number one thing. But if he's better than Dante Moore, and Dante Moore went up against Jackson Arnold in Elite 11, and Jackson beat him in that. Yeah. Now, of course, you're not getting tackled at Elite 11. So, that there's a difference. And obviously it's a different
game. I'm telling you what, you saw it. I know you saw it in the game, Jason. I mean, he's elusive. I mean, he you know what? And like you said, he's got people bearing down on him, and that's what I continue to see in the All-Star game. He had people bearing down on him, and he just sits in there cool, calm, and collected.
And flicks that wrist.
In there. Yeah, and it comes out quick, and he's incredible. I mean, I cried when we lost him.
Man, that's a big loss. That's a big loss for them because I tell you, now obviously we were going to talk. Obviously, Dillon Gabriel coming back, as we talked about, that was one of the things in the last show we were talking about that was important for Oklahoma to get him to come back so that you don't have to rush Jackson in. That allowed your guys to go in and get a quarterback, though. I mean, without having anybody really chasing after him. In Wake Forest, say his name for me again one more time.
Sam.
Sam.
My mind just went blank on.
Mine did too.
When you turn 63, guys, your mind tends to do this to you.
In any event,
Sam Hartman.
Yeah, Sam Hartman. And that guy, he's going to be a good one. But, I mean, even that guy, I mean, I think maybe year one you probably want to go with Sam Hartman. But if you could have Dante Moore, I tell you what, I didn't think a whole lot of UCLA and its chances once it gets out of into the Big Ten. I got to tell you that Chip has proven to be a hell of a coach in the past. Now he's got some kind of weapon with him. Yeah. I would not count that. In fact, I like UCLA moving forward a lot more than I like USC.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm not a Chip Kelly fan by any means, but you know what he did with turning Oregon around and what he did there. And he's now that he, like you said, now that he's got a weapon, he's going to be that UCLA team's going to be pretty tough.
No, this is what happens when I'm on hiatus. What happened? I wasn't really on hiatus. I've been sick. You're right, but what happened? What happened?
You know how he is, Adela.
Hey man, it's been and I had a great trip. The other thing that I had a blast with, obviously there, getting to watch Darian play, man, and it kind of seemed, that he won receiver of the year, by the way, Texas high school football receiver of the year. That's beating out every one of those top level receivers that are going to big programs. He blew them out. The closest guy to him was 10,000 votes behind him. So
Jason, where's he ending up at?
Right now it's I think it's still there's a lot of interest. As you know, with everything with the portal and all this other stuff going on, it's kind of hurting these high school kids a little bit. Number one, especially if you're an under the radar guy.
Right.
And he was that. And is that.
I don't understand how he became under the radar to even start with.
Some of this stuff, I'm not positive that I should really say this on the air. What I would tell you is, first off, I want to make it clear that none of it has to do with Darian at all.
Right.
Darian has a 3.7 GPA. He was ready to rock and roll as a junior, and just got buried on the depth chart. It's all there was to it. They just never really gave him an opportunity. What I would tell you is the guy that he got buried behind, there was some kind of a flap the year before with the coach that got fired. They brought this coach back in. I think there was a situation there. Whatever the politics were of it, something had to do with it that they never gave him an opportunity. Yeah. That being said, I feel like there's enough people that know who he is. I know Coach Prime's got him on his radar. I know that Oklahoma and TCU and even probably Texas have him on his radar as well.
Texas Tech should.
They ought to.
Oh, yeah.
But nobody's given him the offer just yet. Now, Navarro Junior College, outside of they're right around Waxahachie area. They're in the mix. We talked about that already, Coach, and in fact, I think it's one of your guys over there. So they've done their thing over there. From what I understand, where General Booty came from, Tyler Junior College?
Tyler Junior College, yeah.
Yeah, they're interested as well. They have an Oklahoma guy as their head coach, from what I understand. So looks like there's a possibility there. So there's some options there. What I'm going to say, and this is the last I'm going to say of it for this show right now. Folks, this is a winning lottery ticket. You should go get him. 6'3", 195. He made another catch in this game that nobody else was going to make it. Nobody else is going to make it. He found the football on a throw that went from one, it should have been on one side, and it goes to the other. And he finds it at the last second and puts his hands on it, makes the grab. And he had a catch right before that where he should have been dead to rights, and he broke 3 tackles to get a first down. So this is, I mean, he's a Division I player.
He's going to go somewhere. He is.
Yeah.
And I think, but he'll get there.
And if you think about last night, and somebody was talking about Stetson Bennett, I mean, the guy was a JUCO guy.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes that. Who was that receiver that caught 2 touchdowns? The one kid that, he didn't look like all that great of an athlete to me. He was another JUCO guy, walk-on dude, made big plays in the national championship game. There's more than one way to get there than just by being the number one. It was something like that. I forget his name, man. Yeah, and then that tight end too, man. He came out of nowhere.
Who's that? The tight end?
They're tight end from Georgia too.
Oh, yeah, that's who I'm thinking of, the tight end.
Yeah. So,
although I disagreed that he was the best tight end in the country.
Right. So PJ was a man among boys at the Under Armour All-American game. He got, I think, a sack and a half, a bunch of hurries, and he was doing that all week, Kim, all week. As a matter of fact, there were 7 Oklahoma players in the Under Armour game. You had 4 more that played in the All-American Bowl in San Antonio. The 4 being out of there was Sammy Omosiho. Obviously, then you had Makari, who we talked about, Joshua Bates, and the other guy that I didn't really talk about that had a nice game was the corner out of Washington State. Oh, dang it. Why am I forgetting his name? It'll come to me in a second. Anyway, they looked really good. And then Jackson played unbelievably good in that game. For everything, that's what we were kind of talking about, is all this talk about who's the best quarterback and all that. This has got to be one of the deepest years I can remember for high school quarterbacks coming in, because we haven't really said anything about the USC quarterback that's coming in behind, and he's up for the MVP of the Gatorade Player of the Year for the entire country as well. That's sheesh, I'm losing names today, but oh man, I'll remember that again when I'm not trying to. But anyway, again,
I'm rubbing off on you, brother.
There's a lot of guys that are playing very good football, but what I could tell was Dante Moore. If there's a guy that's better than that in the country, if it's Jackson, whoa. If Jackson's better than that, which if he outshined him at Elite 11, he's at least up there with him. That means that they really did get an amazing find in Jackson Arnold. Same thing being said for some of these other guys. And look, if Arch Manning is really better than all these dudes, that he's the number one dude, Malachi Nelson, James, thank you. Malachi. Yeah. Malachi Nelson, that's the other guy and I can't imagine that he's better than Caleb Williams, but everything I hear is he's unbelievable. Then you had whatever that kid's name that they gave him $10 million to go to Miami. He's out of like Seattle area too. Man, there's a lot of McConkey is who you were talking about.
What and Jason, we picked up a quarterback out of Tennessee. Trying to think of his name, Mich.
Yep, Mich.
I'm really just the film I've watched on him. I'm pretty impressed with him. I think I see some correlation between the quarterback that you got to see in
Dante.
Dante Moore. I don't say his name anymore because I'm pissed off at him.
They must have dropped a hell of a bag of cash on his ass for him to go to Oregon down to UCLA.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. And again, he's gonna make a big difference there.
He is. I mean, and look, I mean, there was some other good quarterbacks there. There was nobody close. The guys from the Lone Star College, they were asking me what I had thought about. Let me see something real quick here. They were asking me what I had thought about that other kid from Texas, and he just didn't really do much. But Logan and Christian were asking about him. It was Austin Novosad. And he, first off, getting the football off was a problem for him. The West was really overmatched in that game. Really overmatched in that game.
Yeah.
But you had some good players in certain positions on the West. But when it came to defensive line and then quarterback play, it wasn't really close. And why Dante played on the East team, I'm not positive, but he was, man, I'm telling you I didn't see anything like it. Now, looking at that Under Armour game, Jackson played well. That one throw, that touchdown pass that he put on that back shoulder throw that he made, that was a throw. He definitely has the arm, and as Jimmy was saying over there, he also has really good, he runs pretty well. And maybe not like some of these guys, but he runs it really well as well. And that RPO system, it works for him. So, and the thing is when he's played in 3 state championship games at Geyer. So won one of them, lost a couple to some amazing teams, but so Jackson's the real deal too. That's why I was saying it's just a deep class of kids And that's just talking about the top 5 or 6 of them that are unbelievable good, and there may be another 6 or 7 of them that are that next step down that could develop into something very, very good, like Mich, as you were talking about. Some of these other guys, there's a lot of them. So
I agree.
I think college football is in good hands. If you've got one of these guys coming up, you're going to have a chance. You just are.
I'm telling you, I think there's probably 20 guys that could really play well at this level.
Yeah. Hold on. I think Chris may jump in with this real quick. Yeah, I think there are too. And then defensively, as I said, Makari looked great, but so did Sammy. And Sammy was able to, at that linebacker position, he showed the ability to really kind of do some good in coverage. I know that he impressed the guys at On3. He impressed the guys at 247 Sports. And I feel like that's one of those deals where you have a chance with these guys. Some of these dudes, and that was something else to kind of get into. David Agwebu entered the transfer portal yesterday for Oklahoma. He's a linebacker, of course. He was one of the top tacklers. He also was one of the guys that missed more tackles than anybody throughout the season as well. But he's going to be transferring, and it looks like he'll have a year at least, maybe 2, of eligibility wherever he lands. That is going to give some guys like Omosiho. You would expect, obviously, Dasan McCullough from Indiana, the transfer, is probably going to get an opportunity right away there. I think there's some chance that he may play some edge as well. But I would also say that for any of us, and I know I was one of these guys that was really wanting to see what are we going to get out of Jaron Kanak, and when are we going to get it out of Jaron Kanak. I think that you're going to find out is he ready to rock and roll this next season because of the fact of that. Yeah. Listen, yeah, James, and you're right. Listening to they were talking about how you could see SEC linebackers in Big Ten. You could see them, right? Smaller and faster. Big Ten were bulkier. That's normal. That's pretty normal, right? But yeah, and Samuel, well, I think he weighed in at 215, something like that. So that was Journey Jones. Thank you so much for your subscription. We appreciate that. But again, he looked really good. They really weren't throwing a lot his way. He also got some pressure from some of the different blitz packages that they sent that way. Not many got home with Dante anyway, and he was definitely on that other side of that. But there were some things that I felt like he did a good job. But again, I feel like with Kanak, you're gonna get a chance to see what's up with him. Kobe McKenzie and Kip Lewis also are going to be another one of those guys that I feel like are probably going to get some opportunities. Linebacker wise, obviously with Danny Stutzman, he was the man that you wanted to see kind of make a step. It did take him a part of that season, but to me, he was the one linebacker that you really could depend on this season if you were Oklahoma. So he'll be back. I'd like to see what Kanak's going to do. I think that everybody's been kind of looking forward to him as far as his athletic ability was concerned. I mean, as a quarterback, an option quarterback in high school, and then, of course, playing linebacker, he wowed everybody with his video. There was a reason why he ended up. And, Nebraska really, really wanted him, and we ended up with him at Oklahoma. So I think everybody's kind of hoping to see him get in there a little quicker. Also, let's see, the new wide receiver. Yes, I was going to bring that up as well. Let's see. Yeah, so Andrel Anthony Jr. from Michigan, he comes in. He will be a junior coming in this season. He looks good, man. He's 6'2", 190. He's got some speed on him and some quicks. It seems as if he played a little bit more last season than he did this season for Michigan, which is probably the reason they saw him going into the portal now. But I also feel like that a lot of this is going to have to do with possibly the fact that, with this new receiver coach coming in, they're able to pick up some of these guys out of the portal. I think the depth, and then there's another guy that they're looking at possibly adding in Tyrell Borden. He's 6'7" as a receiver. So, I mean, that's a big boy.
Yeah.
We'll find out what he's about to, and it's not a guarantee yet, but it looks like he's pretty close to signing. The other addition that I would be remiss not to bring up would be obviously Rondell Bothroyd yesterday, that defensive lineman from Wake Forest, game record type of guy. I know there's been some discrepancies on his size. He looks like a defensive tackle to me. I've heard that he's 280 something. He's listed at like 258 and 250. If he's at 258 and 250, he's an edge guy. But that's not what they recruited him as, from what I can tell. It's as that 3 technique, looking for him to be in that position. One thing I know, the dude gets to the quarterback. So they are building some depth there. I think people have forgotten about the fact that they did get Lacey out of Notre Dame as a transfer, a grad transfer. So we're going to see him come in. You know a lot about him from the defensive tackle position. He was definitely good there at Notre Dame. Yeah. I think he's a big stopgap guy for coming forward. I think that obviously there's only just a few of those. I've heard this a bunch of times. God only makes a few of those dudes that are that 6'5", 300. They just don't really, those are the guys that he takes a little more time with, right? Yep. They're just not as, you get 3 or 4 of those a season, and then you're just not going to see a ton more of them.
Right.
They're just not that many out there to get. Now, but with Bothroyd, his resume says he's a bad dude. And I'd like to see him flourish in this position as well. Getting back to I do think he's going to work Hawaiian Ice. I think that we were talking. I don't know if you were in here when we were talking about that just a few minutes ago. For everything I know, he's got a heavy footprint in that Metroplex area as far as recruiting is concerned. I know Texas really, really wanted to add him to their staff. So even just keeping them from being able to do that is great. Good idea to have Kanak start at inside linebacker. I think it's still kind of up in the air with Kanak on where he's going to end up. He's definitely not going to be a middle linebacker. It doesn't seem like type of guy to me, but we're going to find out. Should Grimes or Downs bulk up and move inside? Yep, we've been talking about that. I feel like Downs has already bulked up to 265. I could see him bulking up a little bit more. Grimes has the build. I think James was talking about that the last time we were in here, that the build is already kind of there. And then even when we were talking about Trace Ford, Chris had brought up with his ankle injuries, would it be a good idea for him to maybe move inside and kind of a tweener guy anyway. I think that I'll say what I said before. All options are on the table when it comes to that, because of the fact that we just didn't generate a lot of pressure on the quarterback this season, which had a lot to do with what was going on with our inability to stop anybody. This, in the way the game is played now, you have to be able to put pressure on the quarterback, stop the run, things like that. And I feel like, whatever's going to myself, and I know that not everybody agrees with this, but I think Ethan Downs is more suited for the inside. He's 6'4", 6'5". You can put more weight on his frame. And he hadn't shown quickness at 250, 260. He hadn't shown the quickness that you want to see from the edge. So I don't know that there's another option. That's just my thoughts. I don't know. Coach, and you know as much about that as anybody when it comes to that. How interchangeable are those positions, Coach, when you're talking 3-3-5 and 3-man fronts?
Oh, I think that, I think they're interchangeable. I really do. Again, when you're talking about these guys, and and I'm not real up on these guys that you're talking about right now, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
As
No, I
y'all
knew
are.
you wouldn't be, but I was just talking in general. How interchangeable are most of these guys?
Oh, they're very interchangeable. I think, and again, I mean, you can even you can put a light guy down at the technique positions. He doesn't have to be 280 or I mean, it depends on their strength.
Sure.
Obviously, if they're playing on the edge, if they're an edge player, that they've got some great agility, good feet. You can take advantage of some teams with somebody like that with quick feet on the inside. So to me, they're very interchangeable. Now again, the technique that they use at those two positions is something that is different, and therefore makes it a little bit tougher. But if you got a smart kid and he can play both.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. And Jimmy, an experienced linebacker from the portal. I would tell you that you did that when you went and you got, and even though it was just 1 year of experience, when you're talking about Deshaun McCullough, this is a kid that he was not going to go to Indiana except for the fact that his dad was coaching there. And now that his dad has moved on to Notre Dame, and of course him and Day, his little brother, are both coming. I think that he was a 4-star coming out. They were both 4 stars coming out. He was one of the better defenders in the Big Ten as a freshman. And so I think that, and here's the other thing. How much more experience do you think is out there? Because most of these guys that were really good have been gobbled up.
Yep.
And particularly at positions of need on defense and places like that, the linebacker position, your defensive line position. There's, again, those technique guys, the guys that we're talking that are those 6'5", 200, 300, or I mean 290, 300-pound guys that God doesn't make as many of.
No.
They're already gone anyway. So obviously, you've got another recruiting class next year that you would expect is going to be right up there again. You're seeing the importance that Coach Venables and his staff are putting on that position, and for depth, because you would think if they did really well as anywhere this year, it would have been at the edge position. You got Taylor Wine coming in, obviously, PJ Adeboware. You've got. And they already had some guys that you thought they were, and even you would think that McCullough may be able to do some edge rush things as well, and third down, certain things like that. I feel like you're seeing that this is the direction they're going in, and really what you need, if you can do about what you did this season on offense, as far as it be a little better, but if you're in that top 20 and you can just get down into that top 50 of defense. I think Kirk was talking about that the other night in here. If you're in the top 50 on defense and the top 20 on offense, you're going to make some noise, particularly in the Big 12. You're going to make some noise. So that gives you an option. Are they going to be ready for the national championship next year? Probably not, folks. Probably not. Okay. I would think that year 3 and 4 would be those years that you would hope to see that. But I would tell you, what I saw from the linebacker, and again, Omosiho, he did a great job in coverage. He was able to he does a good job of reading what's coming from the offense as well, getting to the football. And then with Makari Vickers and Josiah Wagner was the other guy that was in the All-American Bowl, another cornerback. He did a great job. He was making some big hits and he's a 5'11", 5'10" guy. He made a couple of big wow hits, those ones that everybody in the crowd goes, ooh. You just kind of hear the collective ooh. He laid the wood a couple of times, and we're talking about a cornerback. So to me, yeah, a lot of people want to see him go. He ain't leaving yet. He's not. I don't see it happening. He's only losing 1 or 2 games a year. I think as crazy as those Ohio State fans are, no, it's not happening yet. I think that they're going to give him another year or two. I know that a lot, if you talk to Ohio State fans, yeah, most of them want him gone. They were pissed about him whenever they lost to Michigan. one loss, but they played above their head in the semifinal game. If you ask me,
they did.
And I'm not a Ryan Day guy, so
No.
But I feel like that.
I told you I thought they were going to get blown out.
I did too. And I said this before. I think that Ryan Day is Lincoln Light, but it may be the other way around. But I feel like they're kind of the same guy. That they're just not too sure on the rest of that. Do not sleep on Jacobe. You're right. He was another one of those guys. Everything that I have heard, Big T, was that all the guys that played in the Under Armour game were impressive. Jaqueiz didn't get a catch or anything like that, but and I don't know, I'm not sure what that was all about. I didn't actually get to watch it that much, but but I do feel like a lot of people were talking about Jacobe. A lot of people talked about PJ Adeboware a lot. They were talking about Caden Green being pretty much a wall that you weren't getting around. Nobody was getting around him. And then Lewis, another linebacker we got coming next year, folks, being Lewis Carter. Yeah, from another Florida guy that looked unbelievable good in that game as well. So everybody that I saw or heard about anything that has played in these games, and I'll be honest with you, I have a hard time watching the offensive line in games. Even on television, you don't watch it a ton. But I hadn't heard anything bad about Josh Bates. And he's a monster. I think that he's going to have an option. Yeah, they all played very well. Jacobe, is he going to play on both sides of the ball? I'm doubting it, man. I'm kind of doubting it. What's going on? Lincoln Light. Yeah, I've been calling him that for a while. In any event, I feel like some of these guys are, they're going to really kind of show out anyway, or they did show out. So all of them kind of did. I'm excited about it. I'm not able to change these. I don't know what's going on with these, but we're just going to stay at Lincoln Light for a while, I guess, folks. But
it's meant to be.
Lincoln. Yeah. I don't know if you guys are still here or not. Still showing everybody here. I don't know what happened. I had a glitch on my internet. It's still showing as being up, but I had to connect through my phone. So
it was the man upstairs punishing you on the Lincoln Light.
That's possible. That's real possible. Yeah. So listen. Sorry about that, guys. I don't know what happened. The modem still says it's on, so I'm not sure. I'm connected through the phone as of right now. Let's see. Yeah, nobody showed the show where it is just you and you're all alone. So appreciate it, guys. Appreciate your hey, listen, if you'd like to make sure we don't have too much more of these, hit that little tip button or something like that there. Help us continue to bring you great stuff week after week. I hope everybody's subscribed. I've seen some new subscribers. And again, I hadn't really got to talk to anyone before after the show the other night. We actually did hit our 1,000 subscriber mark. We are now monetized. You are able to do the super chat, some of these other things, but you can always help out the way that you always have with our Fanatics deal there. Also having the obviously the podcast merchandise all that stuff will be in the description as well whenever I finish this video too. But I appreciate everybody for sticking with us. I'm super excited about the way the show has kind of taken shape. We only started just a little about 6 months ago, and between Bryce and myself and now Coach, it's been a lot of fun. So I appreciate everybody kind of sticking with us and being as loyal as you guys have been. I appreciate it. And one thing that I'm super excited about is the fact that I have a smart audience here, man. And me and Coach talked about that quite a few times. This is a smart audience. You guys get it. I appreciate that. I only have to get on a few of you guys every once in a while for some of this stuff, and that's all right. And that's all right. I don't even mind. In fact, you guys should be getting on me about some of it too. So we're good on that. Here over the next few days, we should be coming up with a few more of these shows. There's a lot to talk about. I would say, just kind of recapping what we have talked about, I think moving forward, you got to be excited about the fact that you have Dillon Gabriel back in the fold. Whether or not you think that he's long-term or not, I think that we've kind of talked about the fact that it just means that you don't have to you don't have to rely on Jackson Arnold to be ready day one. I think that that's a good thing. Dillon's proven that he can win at a lot of levels. I think if they're any better on defense, and that's kind of what we were talking about whenever we got cut off, was that if you can just be about what you were offensively and get to top 75, top 50, you're going to have a chance to win 9-10 games and win the Big 12 next year. That's progress, folks, because if you're moving up to that point, if we're looking at a top 50 defense by the end of next season, no, we haven't, Bagman. But we could. Did you expect him to leave? Because I didn't. Grinch. Here, I know USC fans want him out. We wanted him out, right? We wanted him out. Lincoln hired him twice. He's not going to dump him right now. Not only that, but they actually got the guy from Texas A&M. They talked him into coming out there. I don't know how, but they talked him into coming out. The defensive lineman from A&M that we talked about, we were talking about him on the last show. But again, look, they're going to give him another opportunity. And the truth of it is I don't think that Lincoln has any desire to get rid of the guy. He likes him. So should he be? Yeah, I would. He wouldn't be my coach. But then, it just is what it is. I think it is going to take some time when it comes to Oklahoma. There's a ways to go. But that being said, you see it moving in the right direction. This is the best recruiting class in Oklahoma history, particularly on defense. You've got some positions of that. Peyton Bowen's another guy we didn't really talk about in that Under Armour game. He had a hell of a game. He showed that he was one of the best players. I would be pissed at him if I was you too, coach. There's a lot of these guys out there though. PJ, him, Jackson. I thought Makari looked unbelievably good. As I said, Sammy looked really good. Everybody was impressed with the Oklahoma contingent at the Under Armour game. And from what I could tell at the other game, they all look good to me too. So, look, I feel like this is slow D is greater than speed D. I would change slow to big D. Well, maybe not big D, but big defensive players would be what I would talk about. You need some big boys, the big nasty dudes, man. That's what's going to win. And the one thing that we hadn't really said, and this is where I was kind of, I think as an Oklahoma fan, and this is something, and there's a lot of Tech fans around. Kirk was on with us this last time around. There's a lot of guys that love the air raid. The air raid is still not proven that it can win shit. Okay. It hasn't, because of the fact that it doesn't really help out the defense. And you just have yet to see any of these air raid coaches get a nasty defense to go with it. I don't know if it's because defensive coaches that are really good don't want to be there on an air raid if it puts them in a bad position, or that's their belief of it, or what it is. But I know there's not been an air raid national champion yet. There hasn't, aside from Oklahoma with what they had, but they had a hell of a defense. That would be the only one that you could say you've had an air raid national champion, because aside from that, you haven't. Nobody in the Leach tree has won that. So, I guess aside from, size over lack of stamina. Now, what I would say, and this is one of the things that I guess I'd have to agree with Kale on, As a defense, you could stop them and get some rest. All that stuff about you don't get rest, from these guys that don't have sustained drives, blah, 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 blah. Well, go out and get a 3 and out every once in a while and you'll get plenty of rest. That's part of it. But that being said, I would tell you that as of yet, aside from 2000 when Coach Stoops won his lone national title, and of course, Leach wasn't still there. So I don't know. Mangino did run the air raid. I guess you would call it that. But I also know that they had a leftover really nice defense. And I think that had TCU won it this year with their air raid, a lot of it would have had to do with the fact that they had a nice little defense too. It wasn't as good as the Georgia defense, obviously, but it was good.
I'll still stay with defense wins championships and offense wins.
I think and listen, that's clear. You got to have a defense. And again, even if it doesn't necessarily have to be a top 10, but look, for as good as those offenses were at Clemson, is that why they won the national title? Because I don't think it was. It wasn't Deshaun Watson that won that for them. I mean, he was good. And I believe that so was their next guy. What was really good about those teams was that defense. They shut down amazing Alabama offenses in both of those national title games. Yep. Shut them down. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think that there's got to be a good mix, and I think that you're gonna see less and less. I think the offense that Georgia has, it's explosive, and I kind of feel like it was similar to what you saw at Michigan. It wasn't Ohio State. It wasn't, of course, USC or even Oklahoma. But what it was good. And they've got studs all over it. Quarterback notwithstanding for Georgia. I don't think that he's just a super athlete. I think he's a good player, But even Kirby knows that you got to play some offense. And they have hella good running backs. They're going to – but it starts and ends on defense with them. It still starts and ends on defense at Alabama. It still starts and ends on defense at LSU. That's how it is.
Well, hey, on display last night, the air raid was there. And
they let the air right out of it.
Yeah.
They let the air right out of it. Folks, I am not sure how long we're going to stay. It seems a little glitchy here. I'm going to go ahead and call that an evening for us tonight. I appreciate everybody jumping in, talking to us. Don't forget, if you haven't already become a subscriber, please do so. We'd appreciate that. Hey, folks, let us know what you think. Obviously, you can see me there on Birdieman at BirdiemanDub on Twitter. You can also leave it in the comments, things like that. Let us know what you want to talk about. We can, some of these subjects going ahead of time. Now that the season's over with, there's no more football to be played. We can kind of dive into some of these subjects a little bit more. Let us know what you want to hear. We are efforting more guests, obviously, as we move forward. Would like to see some even former players, stuff like that. I'd love to get some of my old favorite Sooners to come on, talk to us, things like that. And even some of the newer ones too, maybe some coaches, things like that. But we're working on all that stuff as we speak. Part of that, anybody who has a business that wants to sponsor us, please do so. And you can always, hit the tip jar or jump in there and hit that little heart button. And we will definitely be doing actually coming up here in the next couple of days. We plan to get the outlaw of college football on the show. I think it'd be a lot of fun to have him and Coach on at the same time even. So we'll have a lot of fun with that. But thanks a lot, folks, for coming in. We will see you on the next one.